Action. Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome to our review of Doctor Strange. I'm your host, Chad.
And I'm Maple.
We are going to figure out what Maple has thought of this movie that she just got to see for the first time. So, Maple.
I liked it. I loved it.
No way.
Yeah, no way. It's so, I feel like I love all of them. They're all really good. The visuals in this one have probably been some of my favorites.
Yeah, it's got a very crazy aesthetic. Did you notice there was a lot of comparisons when it came out to Inception?
Yeah.
And the whole, like, walls bending, city bending stuff. Like, it feels like they kind of took that and ran with it, you know, just went, like, times 10.
Yeah, I know. That's how it makes Inception look like a child, like a child version of it. Yeah, like
because it's a big scene in Inception where it's like, whoa, the walls bending.
Yeah, and it was really cool. Mm-hmm. But it's on X Games mode. Yeah.
They're like, oh, we can do that. We'll just make a whole movie out of that.
Yeah, not only are we bending walls, we're like crushing people into them. And like...
Yeah, right. So let's go ahead and get into what happened in this movie. So how does it open?
It's basically like the library where all those books are. And the bookkeeper basically gets attacked. They decapitate that poor man and then steal a page out of this chained up book. That was kind of brutal. And then cut scene, we just... in a hospital. I was like, wait, the whole opening scene attempted to set the tone, but we really shifted gears because then it's just kind of this doctor guy doing doctor guy things.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of one of those guys. It's like, God, he's an asshole, but he's just an asshole. Like,
yeah, there's not much of a butt in the beginning for sure.
No, but like he just kind of was a jerk and then wrecked that car super bad, which is wild because, he's being a doctor, relies on his hands, so we see him kind of go through this. He could have done it better, like fixing his own hands.
His own hands, right. So then he hears about a guy who...
Yeah, through the guy who's doing his therapy for him, and it's funny because he's like, told you so. And Doctor Strange goes and finds him. He kind of gives him that, I was climbed to the top. They carried me to the tops of mountains, and like he sat with people. And I mean, that guy is aware of the things that I'm sure were happening, and he just chose to remove himself and didn't continue forward.
Honestly, I think his little plot is probably the weakest part of the movie because it feels kind of like, or like how a different way you could do it would be that like maybe a bad guy like starts to maybe like lure Doctor Strange in or something, and then like the heroes have to go and try to like save him from the clutches of that or something.
Yeah, because the Ancient One does tell him at some point there's goodness within him. So that could have been an interesting take instead of just, oh, yeah, some guy got healed.
That's what it feels like. It's like, oh, here's a business card. I know a guy who got that figured out. Oh, cool. Oh, you see what I did was magic. Oh, great. It's that accessible. Like, I can just go find those guys. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's just walking around like, have you heard of this? Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Is it here?
Oh, yeah, the Tibetan monks? Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, that's the only part where I'm like, that felt like they just were like, we don't know how to get Doctor Strange connected to the Ancient Ones.
Yeah. Man, and once he got there, she did not hold back on him. So they just dove right into the all of the crazy whatever freaking world-bending like magic. I don't know. Yeah, you kind of feel bad for him.
The huge acid trip that he goes through.
Yeah, it's so funny.
The mirror world and
all that. Is something in my tea? Yeah. She's like, no, it's just tea and honey.
They have a lot of those kinds of jokes. The other joke is like what is this, some kind of like incantation or whatever he says, or mantra, and he's like, it's the Wi-Fi password. Like there's a bunch of those. Like
he's like, we're not
We're
uncivilized.
still relatively, regular people. Yeah.
It's her kind of wanting to avoid, I think, what's happened with the bad guy.
Right.
She teaches him some things though first, and it's like him kind of working through trying to they have those rings. Eventually he ends up going in there when Wong isn't paying attention and opens the book and starts jacking with that apple.
Right, yeah.
And that's when messing with the laws of nature. Yeah. Doesn't get caught for a moment and he restores the page back into the book to see what was stolen and learns about, what is his name? Dormammu?
Yeah, the homie's trying to summon Dormammu.
Yeah, and then they all come in. She comes in and they like stop him from doing it. They freak out, tell him, no, you can't mess with the laws of nature and it could create infinite time. All of this stuff and that could go wrong. So yeah, they learn about the Sanctums and how it's a shield to protect the the Earth from
energies and
energy or attack that could come. And then as they're explaining that, they get attacked. Surprise, shoddy! It's obvious that he is powerful, but he's just not I don't know if it's him not understanding it or just believing.
Because he also points out that, like, you know, the Ancient One isn't, like, all perfect like you think she is either. Like, she's staying alive so long because she's pulling from these dark energies and stuff, so. And
it seems he's also gathering some insight about, you know, he says she was doing what she thought was right. And that's kind of his thing as a doctor, you know, he has to make decisions in order to do what he thinks is right in order to save people's lives. And is she not doing the same? So they can kind of relate there just on totally different levels. It's him thinking he's not ready, and he says it multiple times across the movie. So it is kind of him not really believing in, I guess, his own power, but he's smart. So even though he's not he is good at wielding power, even though he's not great at doing it on the spot and in the moment for the first portion of the movie, he's really smart.
He's very clever.
So he's clever, and he kind of outwits them. That cape, that levitation
right.
cape is cool. They gave it its own little personality
yeah.
almost.
It's very Aladdin's carpet from the Disney movie.
Yeah, exactly, So, I mean, it's violent, but it works. Wong dies, but then he doesn't die.
After he's been scolded not to use the thing anymore, he uses it to bring back Wong.
Yeah, and then Wong was like, oh, well, don't stop on my account. Like, he's basically like, okay, well, thanks.
Right. But now there's basically, like, this big old, you know, in essence, like, summoning ritual thing that's going to bring Dormammu, and it's kind of too late, and it seems like all hope is lost.
The time loop, that infinite time loop was awesome.
So that's kind of the big thing of, like you said, he feels like he's not ready, but he's clever, and this was him, first off, like, embracing that, like, it can be okay to bend the rules and stuff like that, you know, and that he is a clever guy and he brings something to the table aside from just his magic power. Everyone else is, like, powerful magically and they're well trained, but he brings an X factor that they wouldn't have thought of. And so, when it's, you know, hey, I come to bargain with you, Dormammu.
I wasn't expecting something like that. It just gets more elaborate every time something else comes into any MCU movie. Yeah, so speaking of the magic, it's funny to see him with Thor now in the end credit scene. So the first one, because they're looking for his dad. Yeah, and he's like, okay, well, I'll help you. So it looks like they're teaming up. So the last credit scene, it's really sad. That guy was really upset. I mean, at the end of the movie, he's like, the bill always comes, like the bill will always be due, and his whole world is just, you could see it in his eyes, it's just collapsing, everything.
He's the Hermione Granger who was like, I did everything right. You know, you told me that these were the rules, and then I find out that you're breaking rules and you're encouraging Doctor Strange to break rules.
So he goes and finds that guy again. That man straight up just pulled the magic right out of that man.
You don't use it right, you lose it. So there's too many wizards or too many sorcerers.
So now he's like a sorcerer mercenary. Like, he's just gonna run around and
give people the business.
He's like, he's a sorcerer slayer. Yeah, he's like, now I see the problem. It's like, that's not the problem, bro. Like,
he's kind of set up now to be the new Doctor Strangey villain kind of guy.
Yeah. So I literally said, I was like, man, they're gonna have to deal with that now. That man's going to go nuts.
It's going to be a problem,
It's going to be an issue.
This one's interesting because it is the one that kind of kicks us into the more kind of magical universe. I know we've kind of dealt with it with Thor and stuff like that, but this one is the one that's the most kind of like Harry Potter style magic.
It was the entire movie. It wasn't
like,
just a portion of it,
Well, and again, like when you have like gods, it's like, okay, these are the powers that they kind of evoke, but like with these guys, it's like it's spells, and a guy who wasn't magic learned how to be magic kind of thing. So that's even like more than Harry Potter because you have to be born magic in that world. I think it's cool that it took this. I mean, like, what are we on? Like, this is like the 14th movie or something like that.
Oh my God, I'm already on my 14th movie.
Like, they didn't hit you with all of that right away.
Right.
I've had people in the comments be like, they've gone so big, how are they going to scale down? I'm like, I don't think they're trying to scale down. I think they started us pretty scaled down.
Yeah.
And most of phase
absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of phase one.
Yeah, if you go back and think about Captain America, the first Avenger, in comparison to what happened in this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he wasn't doing anything.
That's what I'm saying. And even Civil War, it wasn't really, you know, like this is wild compared to that.
Oh yeah, this is nutty. How did you feel about them kind of also getting some of that Star Warsian style mysticism of like, you know, your third eye and having to think the right ways and this kind of stuff?
I love stuff like that. So right up my alley.
Yeah.
It's fun. I don't know, and to me, a portion portion of it I think is true. I think like I doubt that I'll ever be able to just do a mudra and all of a sudden sparks start flying in front of me. But it'd be pretty cool.
Not with that attitude, you can't.
Yeah, I guess that's the reality that I'm living in.
There is kind of it's maybe one of the more subtle themes, but like it is kind of a theme of like you can't be the total reckless, dash the rules kind of guy like Mads Mikkelsen is. That gets you into trouble.
Yeah.
It summons Dormammu. But then you can't really be like the hoity-toity, like, Hermione Granger, with your stick up your butt kind of person, because then you're so stifled you can't see and think outside the box for different kind of clever solutions.
Right. Well, and then you'll obviously, and it's horrible for him because it's hurting his feelings, when it really doesn't need to.
That too, like he lets it kind of control him so much, right? He's like put his identity into the like, these are the rules and you can't do the thing. But like if everything was led up to him rather than Strange, like everyone probably dies, So that's kind of where Doctor Strange kind of comes in, is like Stephen has learned some of that humility because he's learning to like defer other people, have some understanding on some things that he doesn't, and like wanting to pour into knowledge.
It's no longer him just because everything he was doing was kind of for himself. She was right in that. And so now he's kind of learning to, it's a bigger picture thing now. So he's able to.
I also like that he doesn't just like go back and marry, Rachel, like Tony, ends up with, Pepper, even though he ended up being.
God, they're always having issues.
So I thought that was nice that it wasn't like at the end, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I understand now and I've grown and I love you. And she's like, oh, I've just been waiting for you, and then they go and get remarried or whatever. Like, it's like, okay, now. One theme thing that I've always had a gripe with this movie, like, if you've seen Dances with Wolves, if you've seen Ferngully, if you've seen Pocahontas, if you've seen The Last Samurai, they all have this thing of like guy who has his head up his butt and then he goes and meets some like noble savages and finds out that they're like, wonderful people and their way of life is better than his way of life. And so then he changes, from learning about them and then normally ends up taking on their culture himself and then becomes like the best at their culture. I think one thing that would have made me appreciate the movie a little more was as far as like the themes that they were trying to sell. He was like, no, you are arrogant. You need to be humble and you need to learn how to just kind of fit into a team. And maybe the other...
Now it's like about the community of it and understanding that like...
You need to fit into a team and learn how to not try to be like the all-star basketball player who wants to like hog the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that he gets rewarded with being the all-star basketball player who gets to hog the ball all the time. It's like, because there's other characters in the movie. Like they all could have been like, oh, no one of us can handle this, but all of us together maybe can.
Could.
And that could have had just a more kind of, message that I would understand a little better.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It felt like the one that it was just so strange to be like, well, starts off the movie, I'm the greatest surgeon there ever was. And then by the end, I'm the greatest magician there ever was. And I've been learning how to do what these guys have been doing their entire lives for a couple of months. It's like, okay, like, all right, whatever.
Because he has a photographic memory.
Yeah, I guess so, right.
And got his PhD and MD at the same time.
And he can train while he's sleeping and stuff. But it's like, I don't know, are those guys not good at what they do? Like, it seems like they've spent their life doing
that. Yeah, like no, it really is a lifetime of work.
Like, okay. So that part is the part that just kind of fell flat to me. It's like I saw what they were trying to do with some of the other themes. And I was like, okay, kind of there with these, but that one just stuck out as being kind of like, wow, it's very off-brand for like Disney because they have other properties. I think they nail a lot of those really well.
Yeah, you don't see enough at the end to know really has his ego dissolved fully.
Because he's still like the hottest shit in the room, so it's kind of like it just. Yeah, you would think the universe would balance that out in your writing of like, okay, if the guy needs to learn to be humble, then the universe is going to humble him, and it did for a minute when his hands were messed up, but then it was like, okay, but we're gonna trade that for like, okay, now your hands kind of shake. Sorry, you'll never be a surgeon again.
But it didn't humble. There was no because he's still so even at the end is still looking at his hands And I'm sitting there thinking, like he's still looking at his hands at the end. It's not, that never concluded itself.
Why doesn't he take that little time device and just exactly. Why did he just do that?
See, problem solved.
Yeah, good to go.
Go be a doctor.
Yeah, some clever Sorcerer Supreme.
Go be a doctor.
I'll be the Sorcerer Supreme. I know, he's like, no more magic. I'm back to the doctor thing. He goes back to being a total raging asshole. I mean, it does seem like I don't know, he does seem like less of a raging jerk at the end. But like I said, it's more of like, it feels like if the lesson that the character's supposed to learn is, X, then the universe serves them Y.
Yeah.
And doesn't allow them to explore X anymore. But it did kind of still make him like an all-star that's like a single guy. Because that was kind of his problem as a surgeon, too. Yeah. Was that he saw himself as like the all-star and everyone else was like his peon. And it's like,
yeah,
no,
like he's not going to work in the ER. He's not going to be an ER
No, I'm a specialist.
Doctor, and he's working on high-tech technology that's going to change the world. And the Tony Stark of doctors.
Right. Well, and so that's that leads us into our next
Bastion Calderon. I would ask Mabel if she thinks Strange is more of an asshole than what Tony was when we first met him. No, I don't think, they are in different ways though, like both equally as bad. But I think I've seen more of Tony, so Tony feels worse to me.
Oh, really interesting. Okay. All right.
Doctor Strange might be some rich jerk that flies his fancy car around my little lunchbox, and I'd just be like, fuck that guy, like, keep driving,
Yeah, but, like, we get to see into his life. We're not seeing it, like, from the outside. So, like, I think Tony comes across as extremely aloof because he's so rich. So he kind of doesn't really put a lot of value on people, but he never goes out of his way ever, I feel like, to be, like, really biting and shitty to anybody. Yeah,
that is true. And he was Doctor Strange,
mean. Like, you can tell he's sitting there thinking, like, what's the meanest thing I can say to get into this person, Like, he's such an asshole, it feels like.
Yeah, even what he was saying, he's like, we were like his lady.
Yeah.
He's like, we hardly a relationship. Homie, she was shaving your face in the hospital, like taking care of you, and you're just gonna shit on her like
Where
that?
Tony is like, he's flaky and he's like out, gambling and stuff rather than, hanging out and stuff like that. So I feel like, they're both so similar.
Yeah, but Tony does try to take care of his people, I think, still. Where Strange literally was like...
Well, and even like when like annoying people would try to like get his autograph and stuff like that, he never was like, listen here, you piece of shit. You know, he seemed very like, he would like crack some joke or something. I mean, the worst I think we ever saw him was probably to Killian back in the 90s.
Yeah, that is true. And honestly, too, like even at the beginning when he's doing the surgery and he makes that other doctor stand in the room.
Yeah.
And basically belittles him as if he figured it out. And he didn't even figure it out. It was her. She was the one that just needed somebody to perform the operation.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
I don't think...
And he just takes credit, like he's just taking credit where it's not due, which is exactly the theme, and that's the theme. Like you literally were saying that you have a grandpa, like he's taking credit where it's not due. Like that's not your idea. It wasn't weird. Your discovery. It wasn't you, but you're gonna make that man stand there and watch you as if you're the best. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, Strange sucks.
I was like, man, you remember Tony being worse than I do, because like Tony's like,
I think I might be falling into, because everybody just has something out for Tony right now.
I mean, I guess
everyone has it out for Tony.
Well, and Tony's different though now than he was, because like Tony is at his best probably in like Iron Man 3. And then, especially by the end. So then he kind of starts to fall off again, because then we get into Ultron and Wanda gets in his head, which he seems to never really recover from. Yeah. And then that leads him into Civil War, where he's just completely motivated by fear. And by the end of the movie, he tells Cap, like, yeah, I was wrong. He just wants to put everything away in a box. He tells Falcon, and he's like, hey, man, like, I made a choice, and it was a mess, Yeah. So, okay, so... Shelby Waters asked.
Supreme douchey wizard.
I'm the supreme douche wizard.
I'm the supreme douche wizard. Anyway,
Shelby Waters asked, Benedict Cumberbatch, or not asked, she just wanted to let you know, Benedict Cumberbatch played Dormammu.
Oh.
What do you think of that?
Interesting.
You got the voice act for both of those. I just found that out today, too. I thought that was crazy.
Oh, the on-screen chemistry between himself and himself is so incredible.
Good. I think it's really interesting that they went that route, because they went out of their way to get, like, Vin Diesel to play Groot, and they got Bradley Cooper to play like Rocket Raccoon, so it seems really weird that they got him to play both parts for that one. It's like
has anybody explained that? Is there anything on that?
I would have to look. I have no idea.
Interesting.
That's interesting though. All right, so the Ponder asks, Mabel, how do you think the arc of Strange as a character compares to the other origin stories? For me, it's one of the deeper and more thematically interesting character journeys in a superhero origin. So we kind of got into that of him versus Tony specifically.
Yeah.
But I guess let's a rephrasing of this question. Who do you think had the most interesting and depthful kind of character arc from their origin story? you know, all the characters kind of do the thing where they start in a bad place and then they have to kind of learn how to, you know, become a hero.
Yeah.
So out of who you've seen so
I've
far,
seen,
well, what if you only count everyone's origin movie? So it's just like Iron Man 1 versus the Incredible Hulk 1 versus Thor 1 versus...
Yeah, I would say, this one, because it's very intense.
Yeah.
And it's almost immediate, where the other ones, it's like, kind of like, yeah, Tony makes suits, you know, of course he's probably eventually going to be doing something more. But this is like straight up like, no, dude, like you gotta stay here now because like we have to protect the world.
It also feels like you kind of skipped on to like the second movie and the first movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like it's almost like 2 movies worth of things happen. And especially the intensity level grows so quickly. Because it does start with one of the things that I'm not a big fan of in Marvel movies that happens a lot, which is like the bad guy is just the good guy reskinned. So it's like in, you know, Tony in the first one, it's Ironmonger he's got to fight. And then the Incredible Hulk in the second one, it's the Abomination he's got to fight. Ant-Man has to fight the Yellow Jacket. This guy's got to fight Mads Mikkelsen with the crazy eyes. That's always one of the least interesting ones to me. So I like when they do something a little different with it. And I think, like, you know, Civil War was kind of that. Although you could make an argument that's heroes versus heroes.
Well, people seem to... it's the most in the comment section I've seen people say that of the villains that they have to work against, that Zemo...
I agree.
...is probably the most... or is the one dynamic that they liked the most out of the villains that they've had they deal with.
Even take this guy. I mean, this guy, it's like... You're still like, I mean, I guess I kind of technically understand his motivation, but it's like, he's just another, like, I'm going to forget this guy in 3 weeks, you know, I'm not going to be like, you know, but like, he has almost no humanity about him. And Zemo, 2 big things is I think first off, he's so human. At first, you're like thinking, okay, he's just another crazy guy. And then when he starts to explain, like, you know, no, it was when I went outside and saw my father, like, holding my dead wife in his arms. And you're like, oh, this is like a normal guy that you got, you know, I mean, he's like, he's still a badass because he's all like ex-military and stuff, but he is, though, in comparison to a hero, just a nobody.
Yeah.
And then the way that his method of attack was to rip all the Avengers apart versus like, I'm gonna make a million little robots and you guys are gonna have to smash your way through
or
all
like
of them.
I'm gonna fight you personally, like no,
and become
So I would say
that is that's Doctor Strange, man.
Yeah, that I like this movie. Civil War, unfortunately, is still the top of my list, though.
That's fair.
Still on my...
I think the ending really pulls it together.
Yeah.
One of the complaints I've always had with Civil War is that, like, the airport fight scene to me feels very much like a bunch of friends sparring. Because, you know, like, no one wants to kill each other. They're barely mad at each other. They're kind of just irritated that, like, just sign the thing. Well, just don't sign the thing. Like, no one seems like there's that much animosity.
Yeah.
But they make up for it so much in the final battle because it's like now the stakes are as high as they can be.
Yeah.
So the emotion makes the fighting more interesting. Where in the middle section, it kind of feels like all the heroes are taking turns being like, hey, look what I can do. You know, oh, but look what I can do. I can get real big. Oh, that's cool. Like, it feels like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, the ending of that movie really, really ties a lot of it up.
It definitely did. The only other thing I really want to mention about this movie is this makes sense now. I was, like, wondering how they were going to tie in people on Earth understanding what the hell an Infinity Stone is. I was like, not the whole time when he said it, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, the thing is, it's an Infinity Stone.
Yeah, it is.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, somebody on Earth at least has a clue, because the rest of them are kind of, they know that they're these powerful things, but even, you know, Vision is like, I don't know
what this is, right?
What this is.
Yeah.
And they don't know what it is, so they just, it's a thing, but they don't understand, and it seems like they do understand.
So now someone who isn't in the Guardians of the Galaxy is actually like, no, I know what these are. I know what this is about. Yeah. And he now has the Time Stone.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. The Time Stone.
Yep.
Time.
That's why I was like, man, I couldn't remember if they ever said that, so I was like, I'll just keep calling it the eye thingy, because I know that's what they call it in the beginning, so I don't want to spoil anything for
No, yes. So they do reveal that, yes.
Yeah, anytime you see anything small and glowy, it's probably an Infinity Stone.
Okay, small and glowy.
All of them are about this big, and they're a different color every time, and then they glow. So I mean, that's pretty much it. I think we're just about out.
Also, Stan Lee popped up at a more stressful time than he normally does.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of a fight scene.
Oh yeah.
And he's just like, I'm just chilling, you know.
Rather than wait until the end.
I know. I was like, Stan Lee.
Lately, he's been kind of showing up at like the very, very end, like right.
Yeah, it was way more early.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
The last one though, that it was so funny. That made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, Tony Stank.
Tony Stank.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, this is Tony Stank. Yeah, you're at the right place. Yeah, that's it. So yep, next on the docket for the MCU reactions is gonna be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We'll catch you guys then. Bye bye.